So I'm going to talk about what it's like being a recruiter and how it's different, I guess, from being a software engineer, which is really weird. Uh, Maybe not a career path most people take, but it's a career path I took. And yeah, so I guess if there's any engineers out there, software developers, software engineers, or, techie people that are thinking about, leaving their career and trying something different. Well, maybe I could shed some light on that. At least I can share my experience so far. So I'll talk about the pros and the cons. I'll just compare both of them. So I went to school. I studied computer science, and I got a job as a software engineer in 2017. And I worked. It was at an oil and gas company, and I worked there for like 3.5 years. So I did a lot of software development, bug fixes, stuff like that. I learned a ton on the job, um, and I made awesome friends. But right around when the pandemic hit, I had to work from home, and everything just kind of changed after that. I already was feeling super imposter syndrome because I don't know if that's normal. I think a lot of people feel that, in that type of career because you're thrown into this job and you're getting all this money that you've never had before, and you're like working on these big projects and you just don't know anything, right? Like school didn't really prepare you enough to know all the different software languages and all that, and like the, you know, Git and Team Foundation Server, or, Visual Studio, or whatever other software development environments you're working in. I mean, there's just so much to it. It's such a broad field with so many specialties that I mean, it's not really possible for one school to teach you all of it. So, yeah, imposter syndrome was getting to me. I was feeling like I couldn't do the job. It was really stressful. I mean, there's a reason they make that much money. It's not an easy job. You have, you know, to figure out really complex problems that most people would just, give up and throw their hands in the air. And I definitely did that several times. Um, uh, but, uh, but I mean, the money's good and it's a stable career if you can handle it, right? Like if you can handle that level of stress. Um, I was more of a people person, so I didn't like it that much, actually. I mean, I was just doing it for money. I didn't enjoy it that much. I mean, it felt good fixing stuff and like fixing bugs and developing features, and it felt cool. And I'll tell you one thing, one perk about it: people respect you. I mean, when you tell them like, "Oh yeah, I'm a software engineer," they're like, "Oh," their eyes perk up. They're like, they treat you different, that's for sure. But I decided, I was like, 2020 hit, COVID hit, and I was stuck at home and I didn't have my friends. Just the whole social aspect was screwed up. All I had was me and my computer and my problems, and I was like, this is driving me crazy. So I was also a musician, and I was young and stupid, and I said, I'm gonna do music full time. um, which is a stupid plan. I mean, just don't do that. Like, do it on the side until you make money. Then you can maybe switch. But so I jumped out too early. But I decided after about 6 months, I was like, I'm gonna try recruiting because I always thought recruiting looked fun and it was um, interesting. I loved the interview process. I loved, helping my friends or my girlfriend or wife at the time with her interviews and her resumes, and I was like, this sounds like an interesting career. So I decided to switch to recruiting. Um, so, pros and cons of recruiting. Um, Basically, it is a fun job. It's really fun. You get to help people land their dream job, which is awesome. You get this perspective of work that is so different from when you're an engineer. Because when you're an engineer or a software developer, you're just focused on your product that you're working on day in and day out. and you feel kind of like disconnected from the rest of the company and the rest of what's going on in the business side of things. Like you just don't really know about it because you're just a tool being used to work on this project over and over. So you're kind of like siloed, like narrow vision, you know what I mean? Then as a recruiter is the opposite. Like you have your hands in all aspects of the business. If you're like internal recruiter at a smaller company, like you get to know people from different industries and different skill sets, and you get to talk with them every day. So it's like super cool because you like learn all about operations or marketing or accounting, finance. Like you get to learn about everything, and you get this perspective that you just would never get as an engineer, uh, which is awesome. You also get to learn about different companies and industries if you're in the agency side, especially because you start to like figure out which companies are big in your niche, and like what are they working on, what are they doing. It's like all very broad and general knowledge that is really cool to know about and think about. And then it gives you also, you get an insight into what people are actually making. Like you get to see, oh, this is how much these guys are making, right? Like you have this knowledge about like real world, like tangible knowledge, not just like going on Glassdoor and seeing what the average salary is, because that's good information, but it's not all the information. You know, I was working at Amazon hiring engineers, and they're straight out of college making, $250,000 a year, like crazy salaries like that. One person turned down an offer at $350,000 a year, and I was like, "What the heck is he thinking?" Like $350,000. I mean, that's such a crazy amount of money that most people won't even like see in their lifetime. So yeah, that's not gonna. If you go on Glassdoor and you look up average salary of a software engineer, it's not gonna say 350,000. It's gonna say like 70 or 80,000 or 90,000. Nowhere near what they actually can make. So that's a pretty cool part of recruiting and getting to see that insider type information. Also, uh, really figuring out what hiring managers are looking for, right? Because like when you're not in the field of recruiting, you're kind of like in the dark, and you're just like watching YouTube videos and you're practicing lead code or whatever. But if you're on the recruiting side, I was talking with hiring managers every day, like, and I know what they're looking for, and it's really not that complicated. Like, they just want somebody. As a recruiter, this is how, because if you want to be good at recruiting, which I think I'm pretty decent at it, you just go straight for the requirements. You know what I mean? Like, just skip all the bullshit in the job description. Look at the requirements of the job, and if you meet those requirements, at least 70% of them, you should apply. Because that's what I'm looking for. When I'm looking at your resumes, I'm just looking for, do you meet the requirements? Like, if not, pass. Yes, okay, let's talk. So make those very clear on your resume. Yeah, that's another advice I would give now that I learned a little bit about what goes on in the back end. And recruiting is part of HR. So if you're in HR, at the smaller companies especially, because when you're at the larger companies, you're more like specialized. But at the smaller companies, you get to do a little bit more of everything. HR, you get to kind of understand the tea, I guess, like the drama, the gossip, the true underlying issues that's happening in the organization that most employees maybe don't know about or they're not aware of. That's really cool. That's a pro, I would say, having that knowledge, that information. Cons of recruiting, you are not respected. No, not really. Not as much as engineer. When I tell people I'm a recruiter, it's always like, oh, like they feel bad for me. Which sucks, but I like it. It's a fun job. Another con, you're gonna get laid off probably a lot, because whenever the companies go through bad economic times, they lay off recruiting first, like because they'll stop hiring. They don't have the budget to hire, so they'll stop hiring. And if they're not hiring, they don't need recruiters. So you're on the chopping block. Um, I didn't realize that when I switched to recruiting. I didn't think of that. I didn't have that perspective. So engineer, you're more stable. I mean, if you're the guy who wrote this software for this company, that's like a crucial part of their, infrastructure, and you're like the only guy who knows how to make that software work. Yeah, your job is safe, okay? No one's gonna let you go because they really need you there. You're not gonna get laid off. It's not like that with recruiting. I mean, I had coworkers with several years of experience and like really good, you know, high level positions, and they were laid off. Um, it's just a different field. It's just how it is. Um, you're probably, I don't know. I was gonna bring up AI and maybe that how it might replace recruiters, but then it also is sort of replacing developers as well. So I don't know. I'm still up in the air as to whether which job is more uh, in danger, I suppose. Because yeah, I guess we're gonna find out real soon, I'm sure. Anyway, that's some perspective. If anyone out there was doing software or is doing software and wants to think about recruiting,